Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and in this video I want to talk about how to have difficult conversations with people on your team in a positive way. Now, this is one of the dirty secrets of becoming a leader or a manager, and that's that a big part of your job is having difficult conversations. It might be having difficult conversations with employees, with customers. Maybe you're the person that things get escalated to, and sometimes it can feel like your whole job is just having difficult conversations about people's problems, because that's what you're here to do. As a leader, as a manager, you're here to help people solve problems, to develop people, and I believe that your abilities as a leader or as a manager highly correlate to your ability to have difficult conversations. If you shy away from these conversations, if you choose not to have them, or if you're not good at them, then you're not going to be a good leader, you're not going to be a good manager. But if you lean in to these conversations, you do them sooner than later, you do them with tact, you can do them in a way that helps manage expectations, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, but also that leaves people feeling positive, that helps them grow, that helps them be excited about what they're doing. So first and foremost, you got to get clear on this is an important part of your job. But now I want to cover the mindset. So how do you prepare for these conversations and kind of mentally, how do you make sure you're in the right space? But then also the skill set. So I'm going to go mindset, then skill set of having difficult conversations. So when it comes to mindset, there's really two parts. There's working up the courage to have the conversation, which for a lot of people, that can be the most difficult part. It's just getting to the conversation. But then there's the mindset of doing them well. So I want to give you 5 key points to help you get in the right mindset to have a difficult conversation. Number 1, I have never regretted having a difficult conversation, even if sometimes the outcome isn't what I want. So just know that you too will not regret having this conversation. It might not go how you want, it might not be the end result that you want, or you might not even reach a conclusion, but I promise you will not regret having this conversation. You're going to look back on this a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, and you're going to be glad that you had this conversation. Number 2, as a leader, as a manager, your job is to help people become the best version of themselves. And that means challenging them, and that means holding them accountable. So when it comes to getting in this mindset, just know that this is what you sign up for. Maybe you didn't think that you were signing up for this, but this is what you signed up for. And this is a huge part of your job and a huge part of your ability to do your job well. Number 3 is that difficult conversations now are always better than tough decisions later. So one of the core difficult conversations that you're going to have or probably going to have is you're not performing well enough, or I need you to improve in these areas. Here's the thing. If you have that difficult conversation, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable for you and probably for them, but that's going to keep you from having to make a difficult decision later, which is to fire that person, which is to demote that person, which is to trim back on your team size because your team's not performing, and so you're not making any money, so you have to cut 3 people, and now there's 3 families without an income from one person in their family, right? All because you didn't have that difficult conversation. So really think about that. By not having a difficult conversation now, you're probably going to have to make a difficult decision later. And I don't know about you, but I'd always prefer that difficult conversation now. Number 4, this is all part of expectations management. So I've got a separate video on managing expectations, setting expectations. I think it's one of the most important things that you can do and that you should be doing as a leader, as a manager, but it's also something that not many people do. So if you want to set good expectations, and most importantly, if you want to manage expectations well, you have to get to the point to where you're having these conversations. Number 5, and this is my personal favorite, is that difficult conversations help people. They actually make them better. So when you choose to have a difficult conversation with that person on your team, know that it's coming from a place of love and you're doing it to help them. Because here's the thing, most people don't have people in their lives that are telling them the hard truths, that are telling them, here's how you can improve. And as human beings, we crave that. We want people in our life to shoot us straight, right? We want people in our life to tell us how we can improve. So you're doing someone a favor. Like, I can't tell you, anytime someone's had a difficult conversation with me, it's like it stings and I want to get defensive. I'm mad. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. You know, I can get a bit dismissive, but then you sit with it for a day and then you start to marinate on that and you say, yeah, they're actually right. And I respect those people more. I appreciate those people more. I want those people around me in my life. So you're going to actually build trust and build relationship. And most importantly, you're going to help this person by having the difficult conversation. So those are a few things to kind of help you get in the mindset of having the courage to actually have the conversation, building it as a habit. Now, what about the skill set? How do you do these well? So I want to walk you through the 7 things from a skill set perspective to be able to have effective conversations where you clearly communicate what you need to communicate, but also you're not damaging the relationship. So this person is going to come out of that experience in a positive way, and maybe not at first. They might be offended or hurt or all those things at first, but when they marinate on it, they're going to be, like I said just a little bit ago, they're going to come out of this in a positive mindset. So number 1, always have these conversations face to face. This is my personal preference. I always want to have these conversations over Zoom or in person if possible. Maybe the third resort would be phone call, but don't text them this feedback. Don't write them an angry email. Don't fire off this thing. Actually take the time to have an in-person conversation. You're going to be able to read body language. You're going to be able to communicate more effectively. Number 2, have this conversation sooner than later. So don't let it build up. The worst thing that you can do is just be fuming, and it's like this has happened over 6 months and you didn't say anything, and now it's building up, and then you snap. Right? We've all been there. And I'm an advocate, and I would encourage you to be as well, of have that conversation sooner. Like, I love how Jack Welch's stance on this is like, I always want people to know where they stand. And so if I have feedback, I'm going to give it, and I'm going to give it as soon as possible. But, and here's a big caveat, is you need to wait a second to cool down. Because sometimes you're going to give that feedback. It's like, oh man, I'm really pissed at this person and they screwed this thing up, and so I'm going to give them the feedback right now. Well, guess what? I mean, you know this. This is not the best place to come from when you're giving feedback. So I like the appropriate pause to where I remove the emotions out of it as much as possible, and to where I kind of detach from, maybe I'm triggered or maybe I'm upset or any of those things. So I want to give myself some time to really be even keeled and think through, but then also mixed with that is give them the feedback as quick as possible and don't let it build up. Number 3, when in doubt, shoot straight and don't sugarcoat. This is very difficult. And this is also a mindset thing, is because if you haven't done this over and over and delivered difficult feedback or had difficult conversations, you're probably going to be self-conscious, and you're probably not going to want to hurt the other person's feelings. So you'll tiptoe around it and you'll say, oh, I don't know, man, this is probably fine. And, maybe this isn't really a big deal, but I just kind of get a little bit upset when you do this thing, and I need you to maybe improve, but you're doing really well as well. And the person is so confused that you think that you've had a difficult conversation. They do not think so, because you've meandered around your point. Right? So you need to be clear, and when in doubt, I'd rather be too clear and a little bit harsh, but I'm clearly communicating, and then I'm making sure that that person feels loved, but they clearly hear what I'm saying. And that brings me into number 4, which is clear communication and specific next steps. Okay? So I already talked about a little bit on the clear communication part, but I want to be very specific. Hey, here's a thing that I need you to work on. Here's a couple instances where, some examples of where that thing happened, and what you should have done, or what I need you to do is this instead. And here are the specific next steps I want you to work on. So we have clear communication around the feedback that needs to be delivered, and then specific next steps. And with specific next steps, a lot of times that means setting boundaries. So I need you to do X, Y, Z over the next 2 weeks. Maybe this wraps into a performance improvement plan. If you do not improve this performance over the next 30 days, then here's what's going to happen. We're going to have to fire you, or you're going to leave the company, or, then it's going to move to the final chance, which is the next 15 days, and you need to do X, Y, Z by then, or we're going to have to terminate this relationship. So I'm having a difficult conversation up front. That way, hopefully, I don't have to make a difficult decision later. Because sometimes if you just clearly communicate that, people will say, oh, I don't think I can do that, so I should probably leave, right? And so now all of a sudden you've saved yourself the time and the heartache of having to fire that person because you've had that clear and difficult conversation. Number 5, deliver it with love. And I can't stress this enough, is there's got to be a human aspect. There's got to be a love and genuine care for the other person. And so, maybe you feel weird about this. I don't. So you can kind of figure out how you want to integrate this in or weave this in. But I'll say, hey, I love you. I appreciate you. I want the best for you. I want to work together long term. Like, I care about you. Therefore, I'm giving you this feedback. So just humanizing that, then it becomes clear this person has my best interest in mind. And I'm really fired up to be here, because I'm working for the type of person, or I'm working with the type of person that's going to tell me the hard truth, that's going to help me get better. So deliver it with love and communicate that fact. And not only help you have the conversation sooner, it'll set up the conversation, and it'll help the other person respond well when you give that feedback, when you have that difficult conversation. Number 6, the feedback sandwich. We've all heard of the feedback sandwich. Maybe you hate it, maybe you love it. Sometimes it can feel disingenuous. I think there's a version of the feedback sandwich, or the 1 Minute Manager kind of calls this the 1 minute reprimand, which is truly saying, hey, here's some things you're doing great at. Here's some specific things that I want you to work on. And then my version is I don't go compliment again at the end. I go specific next steps and encouragement, right? So it's kind of my version of the feedback sandwich, which is, hey, here's some positive, here's some very specific and maybe tough feedback, tough conversation, all that. Hey, specific next steps. Here's what I need you to do. But guess what? I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to be here to support you, but I'm also going to hold you accountable. And so I kind of make a joke there, but let them know like, hey, I'm very serious about this, but also I know that you can do it. I believe in you. I see this in you. And I know that if you improve here, this is going to be so impactful for you in the workplace, in your personal relationships, in your personal life, right? So we're tying all these things together and we're ending it on an uplifting note, which is like, oh, cool. I've gotten the feedback. I'm excited about implementing this. I know what this looks like. And I know that this is going to make a positive impact in my life, personally, professionally. Number 7, and you can follow everything up to this point, but if you missed this last point, there can still be blurred lines and poor communication. So number 7 is to send a written summary afterwards. Okay, I can't stress this enough. Difficult conversations are hard to have, and maybe you weren't confident, maybe you danced around with the language, maybe you didn't fully clearly communicate, and even if you did, you need to send a written summary. And because so many times we have these difficult conversations, and I leave the conversation thinking that this was communicated well. The other person leaves thinking the same thing, and our version of that same thing was different. And so you gotta write it down. And I know this is tedious. I know this is probably frustrating. I hate doing this. It seems like a tedious, unnecessary, like too corporate-y of a thing. But you really need to do this, especially if it's a performance improvement plan. Like, not to mention the legal ramifications. If, in some states, if you don't document this stuff well, then you can't actually let that person go, or you can't, take legal action or fire that person or whatever. So it's helpful there, yes. But even more importantly, I think than that, is we're clearly recapping what was said and what are the next steps. So you need to do that. You need to follow up with written communication, a written summary of what you just talked about. So there you have it. That's how to have difficult conversations. So we walked through the mindset of, kind of getting the courage around those conversations, how to get your mind right, and then the skill set of how to deliver it with love, but also be clear, be specific, set boundaries, and most importantly, follow up with a written summary. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below. Let me know what were your takeaways. What were the main things that you liked, or maybe the things that you haven't done before. Let me know below, comment with your takeaways, your thoughts, things like that. And I'd love to hear also, like, what are the frameworks that you have, or how have you had difficult conversations, whether it's in the manager leader side of things, you can share some stories about how you do it, or if you've been in a difficult conversation, how did someone do it well? Either way, I want to hear from all of you. Yes, you, below in the comments. Let me know. I read and respond to every single comment. So I'd love to hear your feedback on this topic and your takeaways on this topic. So comment below right now. Click the like button on this video. Also subscribe to this channel, to this podcast, and I'll see you in the next video. Talk soon.